What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and because you guys smashed that like button like no tomorrow, you have unlocked the updated Darkworld profile. Now I know straight from the top you don't think it's a Darkworld deck, but it is, don't you worry. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe, because if you get this video up to 50 likes, it will unlock the Synchro version. And trust me, I really want to show you that deck because it is spicy as heck, and it does in exchange a lot of XYZ and Link monsters for Synchro, so it kind of unlocks a new ability for the deck. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into this updated profile. To start off with your new normal summon of the deck, and it is Triple Fairy Tail Luna. So for those of you who don't know, Fairy Tail Luna on summon, so when it's specifically normal summoned, you get to add a spellcaster type monster with 1850 attack from the deck to the hand, and that includes herself. So you basically she is a form of Fenrir in a sense, so on normal summon she will search out another copy of herself. And if that wasn't enough, she has a very cool effect. So once per turn during either player's turn, so at any point, you target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Your opponent can send one card with that monster's same name from the deck or extra deck to the graveyard to negate its effects. Otherwise, return this card and that card to the hand. So it's a way of bouncing itself to regain your hand advantage. So if you end your board and you've got nothing to discard with your Grepher Dragon, you can then use this effect, add it back to hand, and Grepher Dragon is now live. Not that you should ever be in that position, but just in case you are. On top of that, she's a level 4, so she can make some very nice rank 4 plays. She is also 1850, which is pretty strong for a level 4 monster. Moving on to the Darkworld, pretty standard on this one. Triple Grepher alongside Triple Rainbow, Triple Snow, Triple Genta. And now I'm playing 2 silvers, not that I wasn't before, but I'm playing one gold, 1 Cerulli, and that's pretty much your Darkworld lineup. Now, obviously, the only thing I've changed is I've added in gold and I've added in Cerulli, or in some of my profiles I have played Cerulli before. Now, the reason I've put this in here is because it's just a really kind of cool card, because in theory, what you could do is you can activate Luna and then return the Cerulli back to your hand. So after you've made all of your plays, unless you're really worried about something like an evenly matched or an imperm during your opponent's turn, you can actually Luna bounce back the Cerulli after you've done everything, meaning that you don't worry about an imperm once you give them Cerulli, and then you're good to rock and roll from there. Plus, it means you don't leave them with the material. And obviously, it does get a little bit tricky if they have their own Cerulli, because then they'll just send it and they've got a material on the board. But other than that, once you've done the job of Cerulli, ideally in this version, send in the silver to rip your opponent's hand for 2 or spin 2 back to the deck, it's then good to pretty much go and do whatever you want with it. So being able to add this back to your hand so you do it again the next turn is insane. Not to mention that the other thing as well with Luna that makes it really cool is if you give them Cerulli and you've normal summoned Luna, Luna can then use her effect to add the Cerulli back to the hand, and then because obviously all the Dark Worlds are not hard once per turns, if you were to reveal Cerulli again and discard it and send it to your opponent's field, you can then use the effect again to send a silver that you might have already bounced back and looped with Grepher and Rainbow. So you're basically being able to hand loop your opponent during your turn as well as during their turn, which is absolutely insane. Moving on to the dangers. Now I have changed the dangers up a little bit, nothing too major, but I've kind of adapted it to be more balanced for going first. So we go with 2 Nessie still, but now I am playing 2 Mothman. Now Mothman is all about matchup specific. If your matchups or if your locals is flooded with tier elements, I would not be playing Mothman at all. Yes, okay, it is the optional effect to activate it if discarded, and as you can see the camera, but you don't want to be put in that position where you don't want to activate your own card effect, and ultimately I would replace it with other stuff. So like I would probably make it more effective in a tier, like if I knew I was going to an environment where it was just tier elements everywhere, I would probably make my deck more about the ability of breaking boards or interrupting my opponent trying to set up. There's also another reason why you might want to keep a Neko Main King in the main deck, because if they mill that, it goes to the end phase and you'll pretty much be able to push through for an OTK the next turn, hopefully. For the other little dangers, we've got the 1 Chupacabra, and then of course pretty staple is the 1 Jackalope and the 1 Schneck. Then for the level 8s, so where I've kind of made space for the Mothman, I've actually cut all of them down to 1s. So 1 Ogopogo, 1 Thunderbird, 1 Bigfoot. Now, arguably, you could play a second Bigfoot instead of the Ogopogo. But the reason this is in here is if this does sadly get discarded, I can then send another card if I've got Chupacabra. So if I'm like, you know what, I actually really need a level 4 on the board, I activate Chupacabra. If it does get discarded, I can bring back a level 4 anyway. So I'm kind of getting the loops going. Entirely up to you how you want to play this engine out. If you don't want to play it at all, then of course you can adapt the deck as you've seen fit. I've put plenty of profiles up on the channel for you guys to kind of adapt whether you want to play dangers, whether you want to go heavy level 4, whether you want to go surprise, go second, which you'd maximise these ones out, and kind of go from there. The other monsters that we're playing is the one Zephyros the Elite, then triple Fenrir. Now obviously Fenrir is all about accessibility. If you don't have access to it, do not worry. You can adapt it again to anything you want. So I'm not playing trading in this version. Another normal summon options that you do have is you play Reinforcement of the Army, Armageddon Knight, Grepher, and Phantom Skyblaster. But the issue with those is all of those cards are limited to 1, so you don't get consistency, but you do get power once you get to them. So that's pretty much it for the monster lineup. Again, pretty straightforward and simple on this one. You kind of want to, where at all possible, max out on your monsters, which is why we are only playing like 9 spells. So the spells we are playing is we're playing 2 triple tactic talents. Now what makes this incredibly good is you can hand loop your opponent so they only play with 1 card during your turn. And the way you do that, for example, it would be a very specific hand, but the way you could do that is you go normal summon Luna. Luna searches out a second copy of herself, and then obviously some way or another you've discarded Ceruli, given it to your opponent. That Ceruli discards a silver, you loop your opponent's hand for 2. Because Ceruli is technically your opponent activating that effect, you could then use talents to either steal the Ceruli back, or you look at your opponent's hand and spin 1 back. Then it means that if you complete the loop with Luna where you bounce the Ceruli back to your hand, and then get the silver back to the hand and then resolve that again, you've looped your opponent's entire hand. Now obviously it's not something that I want to promote massively because I hate hand loops and I also hate FTKs, but it's less consistent. It's just something that you need to be aware of. So if you are facing somebody, that is something that can happen. Like you could pretty much do nothing in the entire turn. Like not even activate a hand trap or anything and still get hand looped. It's absolutely stupid. And obviously talent is good because if they do try and hand loop you, or whether they try and activate something on you, so if they try to buy steal you or anything like that, you can still utilize it. That took place of the trade-ins. Double Law of Darkness, pretty straightforward on that one. Double Gates, double Ascension, and then the 1 Archive. So all of this is pretty straightforward and simple. You've seen it on all of my profiles before. I don't really change the spell lineup. I know people say play beginning of the end, and it's really good, but the issue is you need to be using it when you've pretty much maxed out. Like, you would have already gone through all your danger plays, you would have needed to put all those darks in the graveyard, and even then you don't want to be banishing your Greffers, you don't want to be banishing specific monsters, so it's very tricky to really resolve that to its max potential. And obviously when you look at what you would take out, like trade-in or a Law, more so a Law because it can be activated with an empty hand, you just need to hope you hit a dark. And trade-in obviously needs a level 8, whereas with beginning of the end, it needs you to have, I think it's like 7 darks in the graveyard or something, so it's very specific. Onto the extra deck, obviously 2 Greffers. You know, there's been so many times where a double Greffer or a second Greffer has actually saved my arse. There's no reason that I wouldn't be playing 2. Then for the rank 4s, because obviously we've got Luna, plus we've got Mothman, we've got Baguska, and this is if you get shifted or anything that kind of like stops your turn, you can just go into a Baguska and play. And the best thing about that is Genta, as long as you control a Darkworld card, if you do discard it or anything like that, and it will get banished through defigure, deshift, anything along those lines, it will be able to trigger its effect and then bring itself back. So that's really kind of cool, because then all you do is normal summon a Luna, Luna searches out a second copy of itself, make a Baguska, hold out, next turn normal summon Luna, search out the 3rd copy and go from there. The 1 Dugedes and the 1 Tornado Dragon. I actually found myself in a couple of situations where Tornado Dragon was like, yo, if I actually played this Tornado Dragon, or if I had Tornado Dragon access to it, I could have dealt with that Floodgate and then been able to play on. So again, same kind of thing with Genta. So if you've been put under D-Shifter or Macro or anything like that, banishing Genta when you've already got a Darkworld card active is a free level 4, which will ultimately get you into these, which can out those Floodgates. Onto Link monsters, obviously Crush Sheet, we've got XYZ and Fusion Target, so buff all of your monsters by 700, sorry, I think it's reduced all of your opponent's monsters by 700. Yeah, XYZ, all your monsters your opponent controls lose 700, it synchros that buff you by 700. And then of course you've got Fusion, which will revive a level 4, making these even more consistent. Akashic Magician, I really like this card. If you do it right, you do have to think like 3 or 4 steps ahead, because you need to make sure that you're putting your dangers in zones that Link Monster points to. But the best thing is, if your opponent makes an access code and they can't kill you, or they make a card that you can't deal with and it points to you, you just make Akashic and Akashic just bounces it for free. So it's kind of cool. Muckraker, pretty straightforward and simple on that one. IP, Unicorn, Saruja, Appaloosa, and then Zelantis. Now, Zelantis and the Muckraker, I've explained this before, but the combo is really, really cool. So this was kind of shown to me a while back, but basically the way it works is you make Zelantis, and then you make Muckcracker. You then use Muckcracker's effect, discard the card, bring back a fiend, that locks you into fiends. You then use Zelantis' effect, which will banish the entire board, including himself, and your opponent's board, and then you have to bring back monsters, as many as you can. Now, because Zelantis makes you, as the player that is locked into fiends, bring back all of those monsters and not your opponent, unless your opponent is playing fiends, you can't actually bring them back to their board. So their entire board gets completely wiped, and all you've done is sacrifice the Zelantis for it. Not to mention, if you've done the combo right with Muckcracker, you'll have like Muckcracker bring back any Darkworld. And then if you've like discarded a snow, you get the fusion spell. You can then loop whatever the Darkworld is back to the hand. So that gives you like your rainbow and your Grepher. And then you can obviously activate the fusion spell, make your fusion monster, discard whatever Darkworld you might want to. So rainbow, get you an additional search, silver, special summon to the board. And then before you know it, you've actually built up the ability to OTK. So really, really cool. And the last monster I'm playing or trying out is Sporal Sword. So I did this over access code because I was like, well, every time I'm at access code, unless I've gone through cross sheet first and then I go into a dark, I'm only ever really getting 2 pops off of access code, even if I go through Nightmare Unicorn. So I was like, well, with Sporal Sword, I'm actually putting a lot of heavy monsters on the board. So if I just get 4 or like 5 monsters, I just leave the strongest monster on the board, link the rest of them into a Sporal Sword. Not that you want to go that way. Like you could very easily go like IP into Sporal Sword or Unicorn into Sporal Sword. Sorry, Unicorn would then need to be treated as one, so ignore that bit. But the idea is that going into Sporal Sword, and because I play so many high-level monsters, like literally Sporal Sword just near enough guarantee you an OTK, because this is attack twice, plus your boss monster would attack, and you shift it to defense, protecting it from Lightning Storm should you not be able to get the kill on the game, but then still do the job. So it works out really, really cool, and it's something that I'm trying out. Like I said, I've got many different versions of this deck, Link-based, Synchro-based, Fusion-based, you name it. I've just had a credible amount of fun, and you guys seem to be enjoying the content. So as long as you continue to enjoy that content, I will continue to produce that content for you. Should you have any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But as absolutely always, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Until next time, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.